For the past several years, the Mori offerings have stayed under the community's radar. Literally nobody talks about them, which is not surprising, because after the treatment they received back in 2020, there's pretty much nothing to talk about. They're dead. Deader than another DVD competitor 2 weeks after release. And you know what? That's good, because as someone who's been playing DVD since 2017, I still vividly remember the nightmare that the old Moris used to be. Unfortunately, much like with many other super old mechanics, I didn't get to experience Moris in their original form, because I bought DVD only on June 21, which was several weeks after their first nerf. Now, to be completely honest, I had played DVD before June 21 on my friend's account, but even taking this into account, I was still late to the party. So yeah, I can't really talk about the brokenness of the original Moris from my personal experience. What I can do though is use the magic of old DVD builds and show you how they used to work so that you could form your own opinion. Without context, it looks like a standard Mori, so let's add this context. What you saw was a completely fresh survivor who hasn't been hooked even once getting Mori'd right after the first down. And as crazy as it sounds, no, it's not a bug, it was actually intended. The green or ivory Mori allowed you to kill one survivor, and the pink one or ebony applied to all four. This had a massive impact on the match dynamics, because it significantly reduced the number of chases the killer had to go for in order to win. The classic scenario where nobody rage quits, gets slugged, camped, yada 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 implies 12 chases, 3 per each survivor. The green Mori reduced this number to 10, and the pink one to just 4. This basically made it so that survivors were not allowed to make any mistakes at all, because they knew that going down even once automatically meant a one-way ticket back to the lobby screen. Literally the only drawback of the old Moris was that using them finished your matches so fast you barely earned any blood points. Which was a problem, because until patch 1.5.3 not earning enough blood points potentially meant no rank progression. You needed at least 10,000 points to get a pip, but if you managed to kill 3 survivors with the pink Mori and let the 4th one escape through the hatch, depending on how long your chases were, you could end up with anything from 7 to 8,000 points, which was just a safety pip. In fact, if your chases were super short, like under 30 seconds, you could score even lower and lose a pip, which was just wild. I mean, imagine getting punished for doing good at the game. Some people like to exploit this system to their advantage. The thing is, before 2021, Dead by Daylight had no MMR. Instead, the matchmaking was rank-based. So technically, if you stockpiled enough Moris, you could keep burning through them in order to prevent yourself from ranking up too fast, and thus get easier games. And people complain about smurfing today. If after you heard all this your first thought was that the old Moris were absolute cancer which completely messed up the balance of the game, well, I can't blame you, but here's the catch.
You're wrong.
Because in reality, Moris not only did mess up the balance, but actually helped maintain it. I know it's a bold statement, but please hear me out. We're talking about a period of time when DBD was massively survivor-sided. This means gens taking 60 seconds to complete or just one tap if you brought a brand new part, pallets every 5 meters, fast volts from any angle even if you were standing right against the window, exhaustion rolling back while running, no entity blocker after 3 volts, hooks that didn't respawn after getting sabotaged, and much more. With all this in mind, expecting the killer to be able to win against a good team by going for all 12 chases? Brother, you gotta be on some serious copium. You absolutely needed some shortcuts to compensate for all this bullshit on the survivor's side, and Insta-Kill Mori served this purpose perfectly. Oh yeah, and I did mention the yellow Mori, but that's actually on purpose, because aside from the recent rework which introduced the finishing Mori, this offering has stayed exactly the same since the very launch of the game. So if you've used it even once or had it used on you, you already know how it's worked in every single patch so far. This Mori only applies to the last survivor remaining in the match, which gives it more of an aesthetic value than a gameplay one, because the survivor is dead anyway, the Mori just allows you to take them out in style. But to be fair, originally this Mori did have one practical use. I already mentioned that in the early days, survivors could permanently break hooks. If they managed to destroy all of them, the killer had no choice but to slug everyone and wait for them to bleed out, which was very boring and time-consuming. The yellow Mori slightly sped up this process by allowing you to kill the last survivor immediately. Ain't much, but it's honest work. With the release of the Halloween chapter, killers got even more insane incentive to use Moris. The thing is, it introduced the infamous decisive strike, which in its original form didn't require to be activated, so you could use it immediately after going down and getting picked up for the first time. This turned the already frustrating killer experience into a true nightmare, because it made you chase each survivor twice, and minus a couple of pretty unreliable tricks, there was absolutely no counterplay to it. Except for Moris, because I am once again reminding you that they didn't require you to pick up survivors in order to kill them, which completely bypassed the DS effect.
How convenient is f***ing that?
There's a lot more that I can tell you about the old decisive strike. It's an entire freaking iceberg actually, which deserves its own video.
Wait a minute!
I already made a video about it, which you can watch if you follow the first link in the description. While you're down there, you might as well like this video, and if it's your first time on my channel, also give me a sub. That is of course if you like my content. If you don't...
okay, no biggie.
It's just, there's a chance that I might curse you for this, and from now on, your every game is gonna be against, say, the Skull Merchant, even if you play Killer. But hey, no pressure. As time went by, the concept of quick and chaotic matches where you could win or lose in literally 2 minutes started to get old. It just didn't feel right when searching for a match took longer than actually playing it. The solution was on the surface. Make matches last 3 minutes. That's obviously a joke, but overall, yeah, the idea was to slow down the game pacing.
Just a little bit.
For this, the devs started to gradually nerf everything that allowed players on both sides to cheese the victory, including the Mori offerings, specifically the green and the pink ones, because, well, only they were a problem. Patch 1.5.3 changed them to require survivors to have been hooked at least once before they could be killed, which was better, but only in the way that a giant douche is better than a turd sandwich, because by tying these offerings to hooking, the devs openly invited killers to camp. Not that they weren't doing it before, but now they did it even more, because the new Moris made it much more rewarding. If these Moris worked this way today, forcing them through camping would be not impossible, but certainly not easy. First, because it would have to play around the anti-camp mechanic in order to avoid giving survivors a free self and hook into endurance and haste. Second, because the current pool of anti-camp and anti-tunnel perks is so huge that you would definitely run into 1 or 2 of them in the process. Back then though, it was a whole different ballgame. The anti-camp mechanic wasn't a thing, and besides borrowed time, which worked literally once per match, there were pretty much no perks that could counter camping and tunneling. So if the killer really wanted to Mori you, in most cases your best bet was to relax and take it, because at least this way it would end faster. The only saving grace in this situation was decisive strike, because it was designed to deny killers hooks, which by extension also denied them Moris. By that time, this perk had already gone through its first nerf, which made it obsession based. This meant that if several survivors had it, only the obsession could use it immediately after being picked up. The other survivors first had to fill the wiggle meter to 35%. This made this perk way less reliable, because whether or not you got to use it totally depended on RNG. But that didn't stop people from running it, because, well, a chance to avoid getting Mori'd is still better than no chance. In the spring of 2019, as part of their plan to ease in camping and tunneling, Behavior reworked Decisive Strike, making it activate for 60 seconds after being unhooked. This made it completely useless against Moris, because nobody in their right mind would pick up a freshly unhooked survivor when they could just kill them right on the spot. This could have easily led to a full-blown Moripocalypse if prior to that the devs hadn't buffed borrowed time, allowing it to activate multiple times per match as long as you unhooked your teammates within the killer's terror radius. This way, Mori campers could no longer expect an easy kill as soon as the survivor was unhooked. First, they had to power through their endurance, give them a fair chase, and only if they managed to catch them again could they finally get that sweet Mori value. And this was a nice trade-off if you ask me. Want to prematurely get rid of one of the survivors?
I'll allow it.
But get ready to sweat like a f***ing pig for this. Anyway, as positive as all these changes were, they were still only half measures, because instead of dealing with the root of the problem, they simply masked it. Kinda swept it under the rug so people would stop focusing on it as much. And for a while it actually worked. However, since during this time survivors were getting some pretty significant nerfs, eventually it became very hard for them to keep up with the game pace dictated by Mori users. So the devs had no choice but to nerf Moris accordingly in patch 4.4.1. Just like in 2017, they targeted the Ivory and Ebony Mori and made them kick in even later down the match. From now on, they required survivors to have reached the second hook stage, which effectively made them redundant, because when it happens the survivor is already on their death hook, which means that you no longer need a Mori to kill them. Just hook them one more time and they're out anyway. Basically, after this nerf, people started using the green and the pink Moris the same way they had been using the yellow one all this time, namely just for fun. Well, maybe not exactly the same way, because as it turned out, Now, later, even after getting completely butchered, these offerings still provided several not-so-obvious advantages. First, they helped avoid potential decisive strikes that survivors could deliberately save till the last hook. Second, they saved time by eliminating the need to carry survivors to the hook. And third, they allowed you to keep the hook, which normally breaks as the survivor dies on it, leaving you with a nasty dead zone. But I guess to a lot of people, all this didn't seem very important, because from my experience watching other people's streams, by the time they finally had someone in a Moriable state, they forgot that they brought a Mori in the first place and hooked them anyway. Sometime later, the Mori mechanic received another very important change, which made it impossible to be used for BMing. The thing is, originally Moris used to be cancelable, meaning that you could release the M1 key mid-animation and it would stop. Some people like to do it multiple times in a row, therefore locking the survivor in an endless loop, which they couldn't break. This gimmick was a popular way to get back at the survivors who had been acting like dupes throughout the match, or just be toxic for no reason. It also happened. Especially it happened with Baba players, because if you spammed his Mori animation, it made survivors feel extra humiliated. There you go, there you go. No, that's too fast. Wait till I'm on my knees. There you go. Now you're humping. Now you're humping. I don't know, should I censor this? It was basically the early version of spamming W and S while standing over a survivor, but exclusive to just one killer. And naturally, when people started abusing it too much, Behavior had no choice but to fix it by making all Mori animations non-cancelable. This is the state Moris have been in for the past several years. Personally, for the most part, I was cool with it. There was just one thing that was bugging me. Now that Moris didn't offer any significant gameplay advantage and were basically Behavior's version of Mortal Kombat fatalities, having them as offerings didn't make much sense anymore. It really felt like they needed to be converted into a base kit mechanic, so that anyone who wanted to see these animations could do it without any extra hassle. Realizing that was the way to go took Behavior quite a while, but eventually in the PTB for patch 8.3.0 they decided to try something like this. During this PTB, killers could Mori the last survivor in the trial without having to equip any offerings. Unfortunately, this was the only case when you could perform a Mori, because mid-match Moris were completely deprecated. The devs called this system the finishing Mori. As for the Mori offerings themselves, they were reworked into granting blood points for performing the finishing Mori. The yellow one granted 10,000, the green one 20,000, and the pink one 30,000. Now, I gotta be honest with you, when I was dreaming about the base kit Mori, this is not exactly what I had in mind. There's just so much wrong with this that I'm not even sure what I should start with. Okay, first of all, why does it have to be exclusive to only the last survivor? Wouldn't it be cooler if you could Mori every survivor who's reached the second hook? I don't know, maybe the devs thought it would be breaking the game balance, but if that's the reason, how come the pink Mori has been fine all these years? Second, by limiting the Mori to just the last survivor, you're literally promoting slugging. Cause what did you think people were gonna do when you dropped a new killer with a brand new Mori? Play fair and square and hope that one match they would be lucky enough to catch and Mori the last survivor before they escape through the hatch? This could easily stretch out for several games.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So of course people would be optimizing this process by leaving one of the survivors on the ground while looking for the last one in order to get a guaranteed Mori kill off of them. Did you really want this in DBD? Because last time I checked, we had enough sluggers in the game. Third, I really need someone to explain to me what was up with the new Mori offerings. More blood points? Seriously? In the era when we get them literally for free for simply existing? Just FYI, currently like 60% of all offerings in the game are blood point related. It's already overkill, we don't need any more of them. What we do need though is more meaningful offerings that are actually gonna do something substantial, like, I don't know, blueprints, reagents, coins, and whatever. Because otherwise Behavior is creating a weird vicious circle where blood points become the ultimate goal. It's like you're earning blood points during the match in order to spend them in the blood web on the things that are gonna give you even more blood points. In the patch notes, it was also mentioned that some improvements have been made to the Mori camera angles, so that the animation is no longer ruined by random objects on the map. But if they really did it, I surely didn't notice it. Nice. Yeah, right. Wait, didn't they mention in the patch notes that they were like supposed to like fix angles or something? Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think you did, guys. But in reality, everything turned out to be not that scary, because eventually the devs pulled a classic behavior and cancelled most of the Mori changes they introduced on the PTB. The only thing that they decided to keep is the actual finishing Mori on the last survivor. In fact, they doubled down on this concept, and on top of that also completely removed the yellow Mori from the game. So if you had some of them on your account before the update, from now on they're gonna be just a collectible item. I'm still gonna stand my ground and say that Moris shouldn't be offerings at all, and every survivor on the last hook should be Moriable by default. If behavior ever do this, then the only thing I'm gonna be missing is having multiple Mori animations per character. I mean, just imagine how cool it would be if we weren't stuck with just one animation per character, but instead could choose between a number of them, just like we can choose between different skins. This would turn Moris into a super huge aspect of the game, giving killers more ways to express their individuality while also making dying a little less boring for survivors. It actually boggles my mind how behaviors still haven't implemented this idea, considering that it's a literal gold mine. Just think about the amount of money they can make if they start selling new Mori animations through the in-game store and battle passes. Especially battle passes, because I wouldn't mind if they had something else to offer besides just cosmetics and, you know, blood points. The fact that behavior is ignoring such an obvious opportunity looks even weirder if you take into account what they've said about them taking inspiration from Apex Legends. Because you know what Apex has that DBD doesn't? Multiple finishing moves per character. So yeah guys, just do it already. We need it like yesterday. Some of you might say that we sort of already have custom Moris in the game in the form of paid cosmetics, like for example the Naughty Bear and the Werelk sets. And yes, that's true, but it's not the same, because these are skins, and making me equip a skin that I might not even like just for an alternative Mori animation is kinda stupid. But at this point, all I can do is just hope that behavior is gonna realize what they need to do to make things right sooner than later, and Moris will finally stop being a joke.